Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you the top 10 most nostalgic Ark Tames. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. In at number 10 I've got the Thrall, and the reason why I'm putting this creature here is I just think it is such a useful one, and it really did shake up the space of Ark when this thing released, as obviously it didn't come out with the base game in 2015. It was still in early access, of course, and it was for a while, but this was a healthy inclusion to the game, and people really did love this creature when it came out, and they still really love it now. It has definitely stood the test of time, and people have a lot of nostalgia with this creature for obvious reasons. One, it has been in the game for quite a while now, so there's been a lot of time to use these creatures, and they're so useful and great anyway. Everyone remembers when they were introduced into the game, as it really did shake up everything, especially in boss fights at the time, because they were allowed in then. Obviously then they did have to be banned for their wall climbing abilities, but still, you know, that was a really nice time in the past. And with these creatures still being great to this day and people having great memories with this creature, it really does make sense why it is on this list, and obviously why I've put it on this list. They also do have the bleed ability as well. They are great combat creatures, truly amazing tames. They can climb any kind of wall or vertical surface. They are fantastic. I'm so glad Wildcard added them to the game, and they really did shake up the island a little bit. Continuing on, we have got the Stegosaurus, and no, it's not because its side was unlocked at level 69.
Nice.
Great inclusion, but that is not the only reason why I put it on this list, but definitely, you know, at heart, it's still a factor, am I right? Either way, these creatures, I'm pretty sure, were in the game reasonably early on. I don't think they were out when it released, but I'm not actually quite sure with the timing of these creatures. I've just remembered for a while I have loved these creatures as general gatherers. Yes, you can use them for the dragon boss fight, they're great for that, but I loved their ability to gather fiber, and at the time I'm not sure where the Mosschops was in the grand scheme of things. I didn't really use any of those things. I remember just killing those things for hide. I didn't really use them. The only time I have used them is for organic polymer from Kairukus. That's the only use I've got out of the Mosschops. Doesn't have enough nostalgia for me, of course, to be on the list, but the theory was my go-to fiber gatherer, and also it's a pretty good berry gatherer as well, and calling it the Chickle Chicken was something which really does make this thing a lot more memorable. If the creature has got a funny nickname, it is just going to become a lot more memorable and sort of a lot kinder to people as well, and kinder in their minds, and this really does fulfill that. It's a great creature which is capable of loads of gathering, and that is why it's so respected in me, and that is why I find it to be a really nostalgic Ark Tame. So the UT is a prime boss creature, but actually when it first released, I know it's a bit of a later one, which is why I'm kind of putting it back. I think I'm pretty sure it was a 2017 or 2018 creature, something around that. Pretty confident is 2017 though, rather than 2018. I remember it coming out around the time Aberration was released, and I really like these things as a general carnivore. Obviously I did use them in boss fights for their courage raw. That was just a really nice thing to have, but I loved using them just as the essence of a carnivore because they were fast, agile, mobile, and they did a lot of damage. Their health is quite decent, and their stamina isn't the worst thing in the world. Yes, at least Spino was a kind of sort of better carnivore in my eyes, but I found this to be better just for land travel. I don't really know the particular reasons why I decided it, but I just liked it so much, and I still love it to this day. You might just say, well, Spino can do everything, and Spino could pretty much do everything in terms of travel that the UT could do, probably even better. But for me, the fact that it was so useful in bosses, even though it was a late creature, this did make quite a massive difference considering the stage of the game it came out to me, and that's why I put it on this list, and it's still far back enough that the nostalgia is definitely there with this thing. At number 7 we have got the Rex, and I find that with the Rex, it is just such a well-known dinosaur. It's probably one of the most popular dinosaurs in the earth, or on the world even, probably even the most popular. Everyone that knows what a dinosaur is will know what a T-Rex is, probably a Stego and a Triceratops as well, and it really does stand to that in Ark. The Rex has a lot of nostalgia. They have obviously gone through a model change since release, but they've been in the game right since the beginning. They've been that tame that people tend to look up to in the early days of Ark. Now they're not really looked up to a lot actually, which is a bit of a shame because there are a lot of other creatures which are just completely changed the space of Ark. Ark is a very different game now to what it was in 2015. Yes, for the better, but in some ways I might say for the worse as well, but that is what Ark 2 is trying to amend, and ASA tried for a little bit but then kind of failed because you've got to keep it how it is. nowadays the world's moved on, and in my opinion it's moved on to a sort of a better place. But obviously the nostalgia factor is going to make everything in the past pretty much seem better than what you're dealing with now, because it gets rid of all the bad stuff, and then you've got all the good times that you had. And at the time you probably didn't know that there would be nostalgic moments, but they definitely were. But yeah, this creature, king of boss fights, really is a valuable tame to have in any given boss fighting scenario and general attack in combating scenario, as long as there's not too much mobility involved, as it does really struggle with that. Talking about the Spino, which obviously I did in the previous 2, I think, Uranus is when I was talking about this thing. Either way, the Spino does hold a strong place in my heart for a nostalgic tame. These were kind of what I sought after even more than the Rex. I don't know if that was just me, but I thought the Spino as a bigger, more powerful creature. They didn't have as much health as the Rex, and they still don't, but they have a heck of a lot more ability. Back then they didn't have the hydration buff and they couldn't stand up on their hind legs, but I still love these things to death and use them in boss fights. Hugely, I used it actually a bit more than the Rex, I would say, in my opinion. I do use Rexes more now, but mainly I do actually use the Deinonychus, which is not on the list because it's not quite old enough for that nostalgia factor, so I am definitely sticking to the older bunch for this list, of course. Like, come on, you've got to stick to those probably pre-extinction creatures, I'm going to say. All of these creatures are aberration, or sooner. In fact, probably even sooner than that, really. The Uti's a sort of outlier. But obviously now they have a TLC, they've been updated further. The Spino is really a great, neat little creature to have, to ride around on, and to take anywhere for any of your mobility needs. They're great in the water, great on the land. Sadly, they can't do any kind of crazy acrobatics and things that you get some of the new creatures to do, but they really don't need that. At heart, they are still that very mobile carnivore that we all know and love, and they've been around for so long. The nostalgia is definitely there with a creature like this, and I really do enjoy using this thing still to this day. They have definitely stood the test of time and are very much a nostalgic Ark Tame. At number 5, we have got the Stegosaurus, and I'm putting this creature here as the Stego was my first kind of like adventurous tame, you could say, in a way, or like maybe difficult tame. It took about 2 hours to tame one of these things up. I think it was like a level 1 or level 2. It was yeah, it was a very exciting moment, we'll say, in my Ark career. Obviously no kind of career actually came from it at that point, but now it's sort of a career, but not really. Either way, going back, it took 2 hours to tame this thing. Was my most impressive tame at the time, and I'm pretty sure I got that Stego killed by some raptors or a Carno or something like that, which yeah, wasn't the fondest thing that's ever happened to me. But you know, Ark is Ark, and you know, Ark is going to keep being Ark in those ways. Obviously, again, like the Spino, these things are now the TLC, and it makes them even more nostalgic in a way, because now they've been added to more, and it makes them feel like they're in the modern age while still being that nostalgic Ark creature. I know a lot of you will probably be saying, like, where's the Parasaur, the Triceratops? I'll give them a brief honourable mention here at the number 5 spot, because they do deserve to be here in some aspect, just not for me, but I know loads of people, like the Parasaurs and all of that, they are like peak nostalgia. And actually there'll be one honourable mention further on in the list, which is actually going to be right at the end of the list, and it's going to be a sneaky number 0, but I'll let you wait for that and you'll figure out what it is. Now, the Barion obviously wasn't in Ark when it released, but I'm pretty sure it was a similar period to the Thyla when the Redwood Biome released, and obviously the Swamp Biome released, and then we got ourselves the Barion. I'm pretty sure that's how the chronology worked. Sorry, I couldn't get that out of my mouth for some reason. Don't know why that was such a difficult word to say. Either way, the Barion was the king of caving. Previously we'd used Sabers, another great honourable mention there if you were thinking of that creature. But yes, after this thing came out, the Barry was the king, and it still kind of really is the king. Yes, you can use Shadow Maids and things like that, but obviously that's going to make it on the list. It's too recent of a tame, but still very good for caving. Either way, the Barry was the king of caving at the time, and as far as I'm concerned, it still pretty much is top of its league. It is very mobile, it is the right size to fit into pretty much any cave that you could think of, and they are fast, agile swimmers, meaning the underwater caves were very easy to do as well. They can stun creatures up to the size of a Megalodon as well with that tail ability, just truly a nice thing to have. But yes, the fact that they could cave really effectively and was kind of something new and novel really did make them stand out to me, and I still use these things to this day. and they really were great creatures for me, and I still love them so much, and they really are something of what makes my Ark playing my Ark playing. At number 3, we have got the Carnotaurus. Maybe an unpopular opinion, as you might be saying, well, the Aloe is just so much more nostalgic. It did come a little bit later on, but you know, your opinion is your opinion. For me, the Carno is that creature where I'm like, it is just the one, okay? The Carnotaurus has been just through everything with me, through every single map that I've played, pretty much, actually, basically, I'm just going to say all of them downright, unless the Carno didn't spawn on the map. I have had myself a Carno, and I have prized that Carno. I've been naming them Meatball the whole time as well. I did name them Carny Dave a little bit because of Squid's Ark series, but then I named them Meatball after that, which is kind of what Carnotaurus means from Latin translated into English. It's a bit of a rough translation, but it's pretty much that, or it's like meat lizard or flesh ball, something along those lines. Either way, Carnotaurus, a very nice creature, which has also undergone TLC. You'll find a lot of these creatures actually have, apart from the next one on the list actually, but you'll find out where that is when it's that time. But yeah, now they have the bleed ability, which they didn't have before, and obviously that comes with a second headbutt attack, and that's pretty much all the TLC I had as far as I'm concerned, which really does make them even better creatures. I find they are quite fast, agile carnivores for their size. Maybe so the Aloe is more fast and more agile. Fair point, and you could say that they're a better creature, and fair point on that too. But for the nostalgia factor for me, this always tops the Aloe, and I'll pretty much always go for a Carno over an Aloe for the nostalgia factor, and I just really like using them, and I find myself to be quite good and useful and effective when using them, and I'll continue to use them, and for that they have to be on the list for me. In at number 2, we have got the Giga, and when the Giga released, which is still 2015, it really did make quite a big difference. So did the Quetzal in the same year as well. Another honourable mention, which I could have put into this list, but it didn't make as big of a difference to me as the Giga, and I'm sure many of you will agree with that. While the Quetzal was cool and you could still level movement speed and you could build a base on the back of the thing, this was the biggest carnivore we'd seen it yet, and we thought nothing really could get bigger. Well, the Titanosaur came out afterwards, but you know, we didn't know that was happening, and it was just so OP and so cool to tame. You don't even care what the level is, you just got one, you went out there, you found one, you got one, maybe named it Tiny Tim if you watched the Squid video on it. You know, if you know, you know. That is actually probably one of my most rewatched Ark videos. The nostalgia in that thing, truly a great video. If I do remember, I might put a card up on screen and link it there, but if not, maybe go search for it. Just look up iBallistic Squid Ark Giga and you'll find it. It's like episode 50 of the original Ark series on that. Honestly, basically the best video that YouTube has ever seen, in my opinion, in terms of the nostalgia content. But yeah, they really had a new perspective, they dealt so much damage, and their rage ability was something which was seen as quite cool and in a way a little bit scary. And coming in at number 1, we have got the Argentavis, and this really does top the nostalgia list for me. It is just such a nice creature to use. It is very ergonomic. It was designed with a lot of thought put into it, and for that I really do love it as a creature. It also has seen a TLC since it's been released as well. Kind of weird to think that the Giga hasn't, at least as far as I'm concerned, it hasn't still got that atrocious stamina and all of those things with it. But I guess the Carnotaurus is the sort of TLC of the Giga, if you will. But yes, this has seen a TLC. Well, I'm pretty sure that added all of the weight reduction stuff, something along those lines. At least I'm pretty sure, confident that it added the saddle as a smithy if it didn't have that already, because I think the Castoroides was the first creature to do it, and then it adopted it, and that regen buff was definitely not present. Actually, they might have had the weight reduction stuff back then. Either way, I did use these things for a lot of meta farming, because although the Pteranodon, another honourable mention you could put on this list as well, was a great creature, I didn't find them really to be very nice to use at the time. Like, I was like, yes, first flight, and that is really a big achievement in Ark, but the Archie just felt like the next step and the thing that was really memorable for me, and once I got one, I never stopped using one, and to this day, still use them. Again, not really sure with the chronology of whenever the TLC came out, but to this day, I still really use them and love all their abilities. They can even carry an extra creature in their mouth, which I'm confident they didn't have before the TLC. Just honestly, great creatures. And in at number 0, I've decided to put the Dodo, because does anything get better than the Dodo? It's probably the first creature you'll see in Ark. maybe, unless the Dilo's there. But, you know, the Dilo's not a creature you remember. The creature you remember is the Dodo, this little cute thing that runs around on the beaches. It is the pinnacle of Ark. The Ark logo and the Ark wallpaper should all just have the Dodo at the forefront. You've got the Dodo Rexes and the Dodo Wyverns, but nothing stands in comparison to the great original Dodo. And that is why, obviously, it deserves to be king of this list 100%.
Now, of course, we must shout out our Patreons, Ekaterina Puchkova and Karina Thorne, who are our paid Patreon members at the moment. Thank you for all your support. I really appreciate everyone on this list. Everyone else is, of course, free members. Thanks for the support, though.